Hello and welcome to the Transfer News Central podcast, episode 1. This is going to be a weekly podcast where we discuss all the biggest transfer topics that are in the world of football this week. So I'm Declan Flannery, and this week I'm joined by Jonny Bentley.
Hello.
Nice to meet you, Jonny.
Nice to meet you too.
And James, who's formerly of the Chelsea Echo podcast. Lovely to hear from you, James.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be part of this team.
Amazing. How are you guys?
Well, I was really good, and then I got this call about this podcast, and it's just terrible.
Amazing. Right, let's get into it, shall we? And I think we've got probably our biggest topic to start with, and that's the whole debacle of Maurizio Sarri going to Juventus, and is Lampard going to come to Chelsea, and the transfer ban, etc. So I feel like, James, do you want to get started on this? I feel like you've got the most to say.
Yeah, I've got a lot to say. I'll just outline the situation, people who don't know. Chelsea got a transfer ban from I think it was UEFA for breach of some rules regarding recruitment of under 17 players. 2 transfer windows. Chelsea they've appealed the ban, but they haven't asked for it to be frozen. So Chelsea will be serving the transfer ban this summer and in January. So they won't be able to buy any players, and that's the situation with the transfer ban, which means that fortunately Chelsea have a huge loan army and one of the best academies in Europe. So I think actually there's people at Chelsea who think this is a good thing because they want to use the academy, they want to use the loan players. People like Kurt Zouma, for example, who had a great season at Everton and I think is a top-class defender. People like him are going to come back, and also people like Mason Mount and Reece James, who had a sensational season at Wigan, Tammy Abraham, who had a great season at Aston Villa. People like that are going to come into the squad and be used. And one of the reasons that Maurizio Sarri wanted to leave, one of many reasons, was because he didn't want Chelsea to take the transfer ban. He wanted them to buy players this summer and to build a strong team to compete next season, which is not part of Chelsea's long-term strategy. So that's one of the reasons he asked to go. And he's obviously, we know now he's going to Juventus. Just a matter of time before that's announced. And that is also, the transfer ban is also one of the reasons they want Frank Lampard as manager, because Frank Lampard obviously knows the club inside out. At Derby, he's got a record already of developing and bringing in academy players and young players. We've seen how Mason Mount and Tomori, for example, who are Chelsea loan players, have improved at Derby this season. And obviously Jody Morris, who's his assistant, who will come with him, was academy manager for 2 years and is a big advocate of Chelsea using their academy players. So I think that's the reasoning. I think the other reason for Frank Lampard is because I've never seen a manager divide the Chelsea fan base as much as Maurizio Sarri did. I don't think even Rafa Benitez divided the fans as much as Sarri, because I think most Chelsea fans didn't like Benitez. There wasn't any division on Benitez. But
Definitely.
I think Sarri was, some people who loved him, and I defended him until about February time. But then I kind of changed my perspective when a few things, results and him not using the youth properly and other things, team selections, that kind of, I just changed my mind basically. I wanted him out, and now he's going. So yeah, that's the situation. It looks like Lampard is going to be taking over from reliable sources that I have, and I hate saying that word because it sounds like, like you're making it up and whatever, but I'm pretty confident from what I've heard that he is going to be coming in with Jody Morris. Peter Cech is coming in as director of football as well, which to me, again, shows that Chelsea are looking at a long-term strategy rather than the kind of constant short-termist reactionary thing, buying players every summer, then sacking a manager after a year or two. I don't think they want to do that anymore, and I think this is all part of a long-term strategy.
And that is the Chelsea way, isn't it, to get rid of a manager after a season?
Yeah, it is, yeah, and I think everyone's sick of it, and I'm sick of it. I think Chelsea have actually wanted to do this for about 5 or 6 years. I think they thought Mourinho, when he came back the second time, for some reason they thought he would be a long-term manager. Obviously that didn't work out, and then Conte, they thought the same. And I remember Michael Emenalo saying that, but that didn't work out. And I think, again, Sarri was meant to be that guy as well, and then obviously that's not worked out. So I think, yeah, I think the transfer ban is an opportunity to go start from scratch in a way and kind of rebuild the team.
Definitely.
Over kind of the next 3, 4, 5 years. Hopefully this will be the last change of manager Chelsea have for at least 5 years. And I'm optimistic about that. If it's Lampard, I think that's the kind of thing he wants to do anyway. He likes a project that he can build. And yeah, so that's the situation at Chelsea. So Chelsea won't be buying anyone this summer, but we will be bringing in a lot of players who weren't in the squad last year. Like I said, Tammy Abraham, I think, Reece James, Mason Mount, Kurt Zuma. There probably could be another few, maybe Bakayoko, possibly a couple of others could come back. Pulisic obviously he's technically on loan, but he's a new signing, so he's going to come in too.
Yeah.
So all of those players will be in the squad who weren't in the squad this year. So that's kind of like our transfer market.
Yeah, I did recently see that actually Didier Drogba sort of gave his vote of confidence for Lampard to come into that role. And that'll be interesting to see. I do really like Drogba. He's one of the best strikers the Premier League's had. But what do you think about it, Johnny? What do you make of the situation?
Well, I was some really nice insight there from James on the whole thing, obviously being a Chelsea fan himself. For me, I think you were talking about actually looking long-term at project at Chelsea. And, as Chelsea have been over the years, they've been very trigger happy, as you say, with the managers, not really leading to anything, as we say, long-term. It's been stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Now, I think when you're appointing someone like Maurizio Sarri, I think there's an obvious comparison with Pep Guardiola in the kind of football that they want to play in terms of always playing out from the back, playing a lovely brand of football and winning games in that way, as opposed to in other ways where with lots of possession, as opposed to other ways like Chelsea have been in the past, where they sometimes sit deeper and counter attack. That was particularly prominent with Antonio Conte. Happened quite a bit with Mourinho as well in patches when he was in charge. And with Maurizio Sarri, it was a bit of a culture shock, a bit of a change that he's going to. I mean, let's remember he came in only a few weeks before the season started. He didn't really get a first proper pre-season to get the squad accustomed to his ideas. They had to get accustomed by playing Premier League games as opposed to, lots of friendlies at the start of the season.
Does that make it more impressive of how he did this season?
I think he did remarkably well. I mean, he finished third in what was, two teams who I think most people would have said at the start of the season they're going to be the two that's challenging for the title, and they did. They finished the best of the rest in third position. They got to the Carabao Cup final, and I thought they were really, really unlucky. I mean, they lost on penalties to the best team in England, and I thought they put in a really decent performance that day. And then they go into the Europa League final and absolutely demolish Arsenal. So when you look at it like that, I really do think he's had a particularly good season. Now, people are going to say, there were criticisms. When Guardiola first took over at Man City, that first season he finished fourth with no trophies. And, that season was a bit hit and miss as well. They went to Goodison Park, they lost 4-0. They went out in the Champions League to Monaco in the second leg, having a 5-3 lead. Everyone expected them to progress. I know that was a Monaco team that were doing really well that season, but that was a very decent Man City team. They went out to Monaco, as I say, in the Champions League. That was seen as a disappointment. So by the end of that season, you're thinking, this is Guardiola, one of the so-called best managers in the world. He's finished fourth. He's got no trophies. But never once did you think, oh, that's not good enough. You're thinking, well, this is long. You get Guardiola in, and it's a project. It's not going to be maybe instant success like other managers because he's trying to implement a style, a philosophy, and a style which in England hasn't been that prominent. We didn't necessarily have this eye-catching football that we do now. And now you see a lot of, Gareth Southgate, is trying to implement a similar style with England about passing it out from the back, trying to control the possession of the game. Second season, spends a lot of money in the summer, has had that time to implement some of his ideas so he can decide whether players X, Y, and Z can make it and carry on next season, or whether they're on for the chopping block. He had a big transition. He got rid of players. He brought players in, and then they get 100 points in the league next season. So what I think with Sarri is there were two factors that he needed to succeed, and that's time and money. Time to implement his ideas, time to implement his style, and it's not just something that comes there. And then, as we saw, there were moments where people would say, I'm sure, they're not creating enough chances, they're not opening teams up quick enough, the ball's being moved too slowly. The same criticisms were made with Man City in that first season when the players weren't opening up teams. I remember going on a game because I'm a Burnley fan, and it was Man City Burnley, and City won 2-1. There were people saying, oh, this is quite slow, this isn't zippy, passy football that's taking apart this Burnley team, that's defending team. This isn't good enough. You have to have that understanding that doesn't just come over a few weeks. That takes a long time to implement, and some of the players weren't able to do that. Look at Chelsea's team. I'm sure if Sarri, James, you were mentioning that Sarri would have liked to have brought players in to strengthen his squad, strengthen his team. To get to that top level of football, top brand of football, he needs specialists in positions. He needs fullbacks that are going to bomb on and stretch teams. He needs midfielders and defenders that are comfortable on the ball. He needs a striker that certainly, can do a little bit better than Gonzalo Higuain, who was there, who didn't do. I know he's a fan, of course, of Higuain, but
he wanted to keep him, yeah.
I know he's certainly a fan of Higuain, but at the same time, I'm sure if he had, I think they were linked with Jovic, weren't they? I think that he even mentioned, Sarri, that he did like Jovic before he went to Real Madrid. I mean, that's the kind of calibre he wanted to get on board. But I think the big thing as to why I think Lampard probably should be taking the reins next season as opposed to Sarri, and this is a big thing, I think Sarri and Guardiola are managers like this. They're managers who want the players to adapt to them. They have one style, one idea of how to play. And if they can't adapt to them, then the players will go out and they will bring players in that can adapt to them. I mean, you see Sanya Zabaleta couldn't adapt, so they brought Kyle Walker in and Benjamin Mendy and Zinchenko on that left-back position. Bernardo Silva came in to add a bit more depth to those attacking options, So they will bring players in to adapt to that style. Whereas someone like Lampard, without that definitive history of we play this way, my way, and, without that rigidity almost, you get the sense that he might be adapting. He'll adapt to what he has. He still wants that brand of football, what's nice to watch, playing out from the back, progressive football. But, Derby have a defender called Richard Keogh, and I'm not singling him out as a bad defender, but he's not a person you'd necessarily say was a ball-playing kind of defender. He's not someone you necessarily is going to come out with a ball. It's not his strength. But he played the majority of the games last season, and what they did to sort of accommodate that Derby is they played quite compactly. So some of the players that weren't quite as comfortable on the ball had options closer to them. And if they made a mistake when they passed that ball, then the team would be in a better shape to nullify the attack of the opponent to stop them getting on top as a result of a passing mistake. So I think Lampard will look at Chelsea and will, as I say, adapt to what he has as opposed to what Sarri was. Some would say being stubborn, he's being rigid, but, he's just seeking the best football, the only football that he knows, which is a really exciting brand of football. If anyone who watched Napoli will tell you, it's unrivaled, really. When that football is on top form, when he's got the players that he wants in that team, then it's really, really good to see. And I just don't think he quite had that at Chelsea.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that I feel like as soon as he came into Chelsea, the Chelsea fans weren't sure.
I feel like that's symptomatic a little bit of the owner, though.
Yeah.
Because the owner's been so happy to, I always think, I don't know about you, James, but when Carlo Ancelotti left, I thought,
yes,
that was cutthroat. I thought that was a really harsh sacking.
I think, to be honest, for me, Carlo Ancelotti is the departure from Chelsea that I regret the most. But I think Roman Abramovich probably regrets it as well, because I think, Carlo Ancelotti before Chelsea, he'd been at Milan 8 years. I think he could have done a long-term job at Chelsea, and I think, because we remember that Roman Abramovich was obsessed with getting Pep Guardiola, and I think the chance to do that was 2013. Yeah, if we had kept Carlo Ancelotti and not sacked him and kept for another couple of years, it would have looked much more stable, because the reason that Pep Guardiola didn't come to Chelsea was because the job was so unstable.
Well, don't you think there's a bit of a comparison there with Sarri? Could you imagine if Guardiola had come into that squad last season? Do you honestly think he'd have done any better than Sarri did?
No, I don't think he would have done much better. No, I don't think. I remember an article that in 2014 something like that, he said that Chelsea needed 10 players to play
his way,
the way that he wanted to play, and I think that last season has proved that right. But the difference with Pep Guardiola is, for me, Pep Guardiola has adapted his philosophy to English football. He's kept to his philosophy, but he's adapted it in terms of formation, in terms of tactics.
He does generally play a 4-3-3, though, doesn't he? And he does generally play with similar personnel, and he has a bigger depth available to him, doesn't he?
Yes, that's right. But I think Sarri kept to the same formation no matter what. He never adapted to match situations. It was always like-for-like substitutions, and it's got so frustrating because it would be like, this substitution's not going to change anything because the tactics are exactly the same and everyone knows how to play the tactics.
I suppose Sarri would argue, though, if he was playing that style to the maximum, to its optimum, then he wouldn't need to change formation, because if they were doing his tactics to the max, they would be, they should be on top of the game. I guess that's his argument.
Yeah. The biggest thing you have to take from it is that Sarri is a good manager and he did do a good job, but he's going. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's going to Juventus now, and it seems like Lampard is going to come in. So how is it going to be different with Lampard? Obviously, with the transfer ban, there's all this large range of players that you can pick from, like Tammy Abraham. But are they actually going to be part of the Chelsea team next year? Do you see that happening?
For me, I think it's not about... I think there's some people who think that he's going to suddenly play about 10 youth players, which is not going to happen. Lampard knows what Chelsea are about, knows the expectations, knows the demands as well. But the difference with Frank Lampard, I think, is that if he sees a talent that he thinks is good enough, he will pick them. I saw a quote by, I think it was a Derby player, I can't remember his name, it might have been Richard Keogh. Oh, no, it was the head of the Derby Academy. And he said that Lampard, since he's come in, has changed everything because it's now a meritocracy. So players will get opportunity based on merit, not based on a reputation or salary or status at the club. They will, if you are good enough, you've got the right attitude, you will get an opportunity. It doesn't matter how old you are. And there are players that, if for those of us who've watched the Chelsea Academy, they've won everything for the last 5-6 years. They've got a great mentality. They really bring up these players well. They develop their character, not just their football. They educate them well, and there's people like Callum Hudson-Odoi. Reece James is going to be a breakout star next year. Absolutely, I've got no doubt about it. I think he's a better right back. He's got more potential than Alexander-Arnold or Wan-Bissaka. I think he's a better player than either of them. And he's
big shout.
Yeah, that is a big shout, but I'm not afraid to say it. And the thing is, he went to Wigan, right? And loan players, they have an impact, they come back. Reece James, I saw Wigan fans have voted in the best player in the club's history. Yeah, he got player of the year, he got player of the month every month, he got man of the match almost every week. He played in midfield, he played right back, he played centre back, I think. He's just this complete player. And of all the academy players, he's the most ready. In fact, he got the Academy Player of the Year last year, not Hudson-Odoi. He finished above Hudson-Odoi in the Young Player of the Year awards at Chelsea.
At the same time, though, I guess, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who you did make the comparison to.
Well, I'm not saying that, obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold's had an opportunity and he's a great player. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but
No.
But we're talking about potential. With this is the guy that most Chelsea fans want to see break through this year of any academy player.
This isn't the first time I've seen a Chelsea youngster do well on one of these, on their part of their loan army. But like, what normally happens is someone comes back and they either go back out on loan again, or they're sold, and that's their Chelsea career over because they've bought someone in for 40 million. And I guess with the transfer ban, you will hope to see stuff like this come through and players come back and given a chance. I can't see it because it's Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the issue I have, but I do get your point.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the starting 11, I think the ones that have a chance of getting into the starting 11 regularly would be, I think there's only 2 or 3. We've still got Pulisic is almost an established player. He'll come in. Kante will still be there. Barkley.
Do you think, just as a question, James, do you think it'll be Jorginho and Kante in a 4-2-3-1, so a double pivot instead of?
Not sure. I'm actually not sure because Lampard's played. I checked some of the stats. Lampard played 28 games last season with a 4-3-3, but a different kind of 4-3-3. So you'd say I wouldn't be surprised because Lampard is a huge admirer of Mason Mount. I think
he is. He
sees himself in him. Basically, I've got a feeling he might, with Loftus-Cheek being injured. Because if Loftus-Cheek was fit, he would be an automatic first choice, without a doubt now. But I think Mason Mount will get a run. I'm not sure what's going to happen to Jorginho. He may use him. He may use him in a 4-2-3-1 because he's played that formation too. So
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And I think Ross Barkley will probably benefit from Lampard as well because obviously the similar types of player and Lampard rates Barkley. So I think that will help him too. So I think it's just that they'll get opportunities with Lampard and they'll feel like they've got a chance of getting to the first team with him rather than having to wait for established players to get injured or something. I think the difference is they'll feel like they've got an opportunity. And what I read, Matt Law, who's quite well sourced at Chelsea, he wrote that the Chelsea youth players have all been texting each other, getting excited about Lampard coming back because they feel like they'll have a chance with him.
Yeah.
So I think that there will be a change, but it will be evolution. It won't be like we're going to drop every experienced player and pick about 10 youngsters. That's not going to happen.
Just as a few stats from Derby last season as well. So the average 455 passes per match. This was taken before the playoff final. So that's a lot. 69 goals scored across the season, which was the 5th most in the Championship. But one interesting fact is, if the Championship was based on expected goals, of course it isn't, but if it was, then Derby would have finished in 12th place. So it suggests that they were very efficient with what they had and maybe got...
Wow.
I hate to say luck because you generate your own luck in football, but I guess it's maybe, just to throw this to you, James, maybe symptomatic of almost like when Sarri played a possession-based philosophy. Sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds to create those chances and openings.
No, and there's some interesting stats about Chelsea as well, which I found out, that Chelsea only scored 1 more goal in the league than last year. They actually had less shots than they had, and this is under Antonio Conte, who played kind of much more defensive football. We had less shots this season than we had under Antonio Conte. We only scored 1 more goal. And We only got 2 more points in the league as well. I've got to say, it's not like although we finished about 2 places higher. It's those stats are really interesting. There wasn't too much change in terms of attacking. It was meant to be. It was kind of sold as this beautiful, like, we're going to suddenly become Man City. Yeah, and I think if we'd had 250 million, 300 million to spend this summer, and didn't have our academy, then he probably could have done something similar to what Pep's done at City. But
I agree.
But I also think there's a human element, because I saw an interview with Sarri did with Vanity Fair, where he talked about how much he missed his family in Italy and he missed his parents, and I think that came into it as well. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if the fans were shouting,
I think that's true.
If the fans were shouting "F Sarri Bull," I think I'd miss my family. I mean, it's not the nicest thing to hear from the crowd.
Yeah, Juventus is a bigger job right now, and a better job than Chelsea right now, and I don't blame him for going.
Mm-hmm. How do I'll maybe throw Deck into this one, because you've been a bit quiet.
Yes.
So I feel bad. How do you see Sarri doing at Juventus? This is a very different sort of team, isn't it?
It's such a good team at Juventus already, and it feels like they're only going to improve with Aaron Ramsey, etc. I feel like that again, it's one of those leagues where they won the league 8 years in a row now. Something silly. Like, I feel like that's going to continue, especially with proper manager like Sarri. I do hope they do well, and I think what I'd really like to see from Italian football is both Milan teams have a real resurgence again. I feel like they're getting closer to that, and I feel like better players and better managers going to Italy is only going to help that. And sort of try and build that back up. But I guess going back to Chelsea is I do want to see Lampard do well if he does end up as Chelsea manager for next season, and see what he can do and really use those youth players. But I guess the other big news that we've had is Chelsea actually selling their best player of the last 3 or 4 or 5 years to Real Madrid, and basically what is Eden Hazard going to bring to Real Madrid that we haven't seen from the Galacticos over the last decade. I know they really struggled last year, and this summer is seen as a rebuild, and we've seen them buy countless players already and spend over 300 million euros. So far we've had Eden Hazard come in, Ferland Mendy, Rodrigo, Luka Jovic, Eder Militao, and now yesterday they've signed the young Japanese star Takefusa Kubo from Tokyo FC. Or FC Tokyo. And I guess what can we expect to see from Real Madrid next season? Are they going to come in and storm the league and storm the Champions League? What do you guys expect?
Go on. We were both waiting for each of this. Yeah, go on, James. Off you go.
I'm excited about Real Madrid next year, I have to say. And I'm happy for Eden Hazard to get his move, because he wanted to play for them since he was a kid, and you can't blame someone for wanting to play for Real Madrid, as far as I'm concerned. Biggest club in the world. And to be honest, when he first joined Chelsea, 2013, I said to friends, he will leave us for Real Madrid in about 5 or 6 years' time. You wait and see. And that's what's happened.
You should have put money on that.
I should have. I should have done.
That's a good hunch.
But I think they're basically playing Football Manager this summer. They've bought all the best players. Jovic. Everyone wanted Jovic. He's gone to Real Madrid. And he's going to be a world-class striker, I think. Got huge potential. Obviously, Hazard's at his prime right now, and he's only going to get better, I think. The next couple of years, he's going to be... And in the Spanish league as well, which is much more friendly for attacking players than the English league.
Yeah,
I think he's going to get more goals. I think he'll get more assists as well. I can't remember how many goal contributions it was last season.
A lot, wasn't it? Double figures for both, wasn't it?
I think it was like something about 40 or something like that.
Wow, that's a
He
lot.
got 21 goals and about 20 odd assists or something. It's just insane stats that he gets, and he's going to be playing for Real Madrid with better players and in a league that's more suitable for attacking players. So I think Madrid, it's clear what Zidane wants to do. He wants to win the Champions League again.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident they will make a serious challenge in the Champions League. And they'll probably win the Spanish league as well.
I guess what we have seen there is, I know they've brought in Eden Hazard, who is that big marquee signing that we're used to seeing with Real Madrid, but those other players that they've signed are young, and they're definitely building blocks for them. So you're seeing a replacement with Ferland Mendy. That's a replacement for Marcelo right there. Luka Jovic for Karim Benzema. Eder Militao for Ramos. Do you know what I mean? They're definitely building blocks there that they definitely want to take forward. Do you feel like that's what Zidane's idea is there, Johnny? Do you feel like he wants to build Real Madrid as the best team again for the next decade?
Well, obviously, I think it's I think that the thing with Real Madrid was many of the players you talk about were signed, as you say, quite a long time ago now, and probably going through the same process. Then Benzema's been there for 10 years. Ramos, it's the same. They've all been there. They've all had their success, and it's almost like the life cycle is at an end. So it's important for them, as you say, to get in Jovic, to get in Eder Militao, and to get these players in to replace the old guard in many ways. And I think we saw actually last season that there's a need for an injection of youth, because quite frankly it wasn't good enough for a club of Real Madrid standards. And when you look at Eden Hazard as well, I think obviously he has the ability, as we've already said. A blind man could see it, but the thing that does stand him out as well, I think, is, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but the arrogance that he has. It's a good arrogance. You know, he has so much confidence in his own ability. You know, at times with Chelsea, it looked like he had the whole game in his hands, and he'd just slow down the pace of it, and he'd do some tricks. And he has that sort of, you know, I am the superstar, and a very humble superstar, might I add. He seems like a very nice guy, but he knows it. You just get that idea with him that it's more than just the ability, it's more than just the goals and the assists. Because one criticism, actually, while he was in England was, he doesn't get enough goals or he doesn't get enough assists, but he was so much more than that. And I think what Real Madrid is, I think he's just tailor-made for Real Madrid. He's just got that swagger, that personality that you think, that's a Real Madrid player, and I can't see him doing too badly. One thing that does keep you on your toes, of course, when you are at Real Madrid is that, I mean, the fans are, well, they're very, very, they have very high standards. Yeah.
Brutal.
We'll go with very, very high standards. I remember when Cristiano Ronaldo, I think it's fair to say, one of the best players they've ever had. You know, I know they've had some amazing players, but he's been incredible for them, you know, in what he's contributed. I remember he went a few weeks without scoring a goal, and they were booing him. They were booing him because he hadn't scored in a few weeks. So it takes, as I say, when I'm talking about the arrogance and self-confidence that Eden Hazard might possess, it's so important, because if you don't have that, all it takes is 6 out of 10 performances, and the fans are on your back, and it can be very difficult. You know, this is it's almost like a gladiatorial arena. You know, the fans are all there watching on as the people try to impress, and they are just so brutal. It's a very, very unique sort of environment, but you know, it's one where the best players just thrive, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've seen, like, with Real Madrid, that even though they've spent over 300 million euros, they're continuing to be linked with Paul Pogba from Manchester United. Who I feel like we can't go a transfer window without Paul Pogba maybe going somewhere. They're obviously still linked to Christian Eriksen from Real Madrid, and obviously the rumours on that have cooled a little bit. But I can't see them spending any more money, because I feel like financial fair play is going to come down on them hard if they don't. And because of that, they've worked early in the transfer window. They've bought their players in. Now, who can you see sort of leaving Real Madrid this summer?
We're talking about this before we went on, but because Real Madrid give their players such ridiculously high contracts, you know, in terms of how much they earn, it's very difficult for a team to say, "Oh, I'll take him or him," because that player's going to want a similar level of wage. You know, the Gareth Bale situation, it's crazy, really, isn't it? I think it's difficult, because Bale's not really selling himself at the moment, because I think there were quotes, I don't know if these were actually true, but you know, he hasn't come out and necessarily said anything to say they wouldn't be, that he would happily just play golf and see out the remainder of his Real Madrid contract. And I mean, that doesn't strike, you know, if I'm another club, you know, if I'm another club, I'm looking at the Bale situation now and thinking, he's on astronomical wages. Yes, he was a brilliant player. Not a few seasons ago, he was amazing, but he just doesn't seem to have the attitude or desire. It seems to be more like, at this moment in time, I'm happy to sort of win this war with Real Madrid and sit there and win this battle, as opposed to thinking, I want to be playing football for the next few years of my career. I don't know what you guys think about that, in terms of Gareth Bale in particular.
Yeah,
I thought this too.
To me, he's always struck me as a guy that's got a really professional attitude and wants to play. And I don't think those stories are true that he wants to just play golf or whatever. I just think he wants to fight for his place at Madrid and feels like he should be playing on merit. And Zidane just doesn't like him. I don't know what Zidane's problem with him is, to be honest, because when he plays, he tends to deliver. I mean, like the Champions League final last year, I mean, that's only a year ago, and he was man of the match, and it's ridiculous, really. I mean, I think any club could benefit from having Gareth Bale in their team.
But one thing I would say, well, two things really. Well, the injuries haven't helped, have they? I mean, the injuries have curtailed his. He hasn't really been able to build too much momentum, and when he has, it's unfortunately been struck down quite quickly with an injury. He's been very unlucky with that. But I get the sense if you go to a big club like Madrid, you want to try and embrace yourself in Spanish culture, in the ethos of the club. And I don't think he's really ever done that, has he? He's always been quite quiet or reserved. I know Courtois said, he doesn't make the effort to come to team meetings and things like this. So I don't know. It's a hard one, isn't it? But I can see both points. It's very difficult to sort of, because if you've got the dressing room on side, that I genuinely believe that gives Zidane a bit more something to think about. If the dressing room feel that Gareth Bale, if he's a well-liked kind of guy, a personality, he's delivering on the pitch, then Zidane's got to think, actually, you know what? Maybe he does come into my thoughts a little bit more. But, because he doesn't maybe have the dressing room on side, because he's not making that effort and he's not quite as well-liked and he's not making that same effort that some of the other players are, maybe that just makes it easier for the manager. And this is why he's in the situation he's in.
Yeah, and I think in terms of Madrid selling players, I think there are players they want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Isco keeps getting linked with moves away, and
James
Rodriguez. Yeah, those two will probably get. You could probably get like 100 million, combined for both of those.
Yeah.
And you've got the 100 million from Ronaldo last year. So you've got 200 million there.
It's just about getting the wage off, isn't it? It's just about negotiating it. That's the big issue, I think, at the moment. A bit like at United with Alexis Sanchez, I guess. Yeah. It's the danger of getting someone and bowing down to the demands and thinking, oh, we got him for a really low fee or whatever that was, and then giving him absolutely ridiculous wages. And then once you've made that mistake, if they don't perform, then good luck trying to get rid, because it's very challenging.
Yeah, and I think I think it's going to be a really interesting season for Zidane at Real Madrid, and you want to see them do well again. Like they've dominated so much recently, and it does feel like it'll be a real fresh looking squad. And I am excited to see how that plays with sort of Hazard as that centerpiece. Like it was like when Ronaldo came into that sort of old that older squad that he came into, and then they bought the young pieces, and he was the centerpiece of that team. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. But I guess I wanted to move on and go across Spain now to Barcelona and the whole Matthias de Ligt saga that we're dealing with at the moment. Because obviously they were the favourites, and then Manchester United have been linked heavily in England, and now PSG are heavily linked. It's a really interesting one, and you have to remember he's still 19. I remember when Manchester United played Ajax in the Europa League final when he was in that team. Nobody knew who he was, and he had an amazing game there, and he's just gone leaps and bounds ahead there and leading Ajax to the Champions League final. I don't think anybody would have expected that this season, and he does look like he's going to be one of the top centre backs for the next 7 or 8, 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So where do you first of all, where do you guys think would be best for him to go?
I think Barcelona. I
agree.
I think the style of football they play, very similar to. It's kind of built on the Ajax philosophy. Think about Johan Cruyff. He was manager of Ajax and he was manager of Barcelona. Obviously, he's already got. They're rebuilding their team as well, which makes sense. They need de Ligt. He's the kind of player you buy even if you've got players in those positions, because he's going to be world class. He already is world class, but not only that, he's a leader of men.
Yeah,
I mean he's Ajax captain at 18. Yeah. He was, I think. He's the closest in terms of leadership. He stands out in world football for players of his age, and he reminds me of. I mean, I hate that as a Chelsea fan. He reminds me of John Terry in terms of leadership.
Yeah, definitely.
Any side who wants a leader in their team and who wants to dominate for the next 10 years, you want to get a character like that in your team, even if you've already got a player in that position, because the leadership is, you can't buy that. There's hardly any players who have that kind of leadership ability, as well as the footballing ability. And I think whoever gets him is going to be really, really lucky. I mean, I think if he goes to PSG, I still think he'll ultimately end up at Barcelona, if you think how young he is.
Yeah.
And I think he probably wants to go to Barcelona. I think his agent, Raiola.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I heard a story about how he was Lukaku's agent, and I heard Lukaku tell a story of how he told Lukaku Chelsea were not interested and to go to Man United. And then he found out later that he hadn't even met with Chelsea. That Chelsea wanted him, but he just refused to meet them because he wanted to push his player to Manchester United, and that's why he dumped him as his agent. And so I hope he gets rid of that guy as his agent, really, because I think in normal circumstances he would be a shoo-in to go to Barcelona this summer, but I think Real might be pushing him elsewhere just because he gets a bigger payout, which is not good for him as a player. I mean, I'm not saying PSG is a bad move because they're
great for his bank account.
Yeah. To be fair, though, that if he did go to PSG, and I know I agree with you, James, I think Barcelona would be a better move for him. But if he did go to PSG, the opportunity to play with a Thiago Silva, I'm sure is someone, a very, very prominent defender over the past few years. Also very good in terms of leadership. I think that, and obviously they've got a core of very high-end level players. I do think it wouldn't do him too much harm, but I do agree with you. I think the move to Barcelona does seem to fit better. And just on the Raiola thing, I think that's what really it means that Man City haven't fully been in this race, because to me, Company leaving, Ligt, to me, just looking at it on the surface, was someone who would be perfect for Pep Guardiola's City, and they've just lost Vincent Kompany.
Yeah,
but I'm quite. I think I'm right in saying that Guardiola is always reluctant to buy players who are associated with Mino Raiola, because he can be quite, well, I think it's like hopping into bed with the devil. It's like, you sort of, it's not a very good thing to be doing. And, I think, and you talk about the Lukaku incident as well, but, it's really, he's in it often for himself. And it is quite sad to see a 19-year-old as talented as himself, in ties with someone like this. I mean, he's just one of football's ugly characters, isn't he? Who's trying to benefit financially by the success of someone else.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing you have to take from it when you think about Barcelona is that they've already bought Frankie de Jong from Ajax, who's De Ligt's supposed best friend, and then you also see them constantly linked with Antoine Griezmann. That's going to be over 100 million if they buy him, and the Atletico Madrid president has already said that that's going to be a done deal. I always get used to Barcelona spending money quite smartly, and they never seem to splash a lot of cash like that. So that's what
100 million on Dembele.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
But what fills me with doubt is that I can't see them buying all three of those players in the same window. So I feel like that increases his chances of going to somewhere like Paris. But I remember I read recently when United fans were getting quite excited about him maybe coming to United, which seemed like a very unrealistic chance now that you think about it. But they were saying his parents had bought a bakery in Manchester. Those sort of real Muppet rumours. And I actually saw one yesterday from the Mirror where it was like they were. His mum and girlfriend were looking at flats in Paris when it turns out his girlfriend was in Miami with him, and it's like, come on, like. So I think it's a really interesting saga, but I've really got no idea where it's going to go. I do hope the best for him because I think he's a really, really exciting young player to think about. But I think coming back to United again, I think I wanted to sort of get an understanding of what you guys thought about what can Ole Gunnar Solskjaer do next season at United with the transfer that he's already done in Daniel James and the transfers that they're rumoured to do with Wan-Bissaka, Bruno Fernandes, etc. Adrian Rabiot. What can they do to get that Champions League next year and get United fans excited again?
Well, to me, I think that, with Man United, I think it's a case of what they've done in the past is they seem to have gone for, they seem to have brought players in. And, well, Sanchez being probably the biggest flop of them all in terms of what I'm talking about here, in that they brought him in, given him a ridiculous wage. And then that sort of, I think, disrupted maybe what the real main aim is at Man United, which is to obviously bring the club back to where it wants to be. Because, when Sanchez is on something circa 500,000 a week, including add-ons or whatever, and he's not playing half the time and he's injured, or when he is playing, he's not doing very well, then that gives every player that comes into Man United with their agent a stick to beat the board with and say, well, my player's doing really, really well. He wants to come into your club, and you've got a player who's on nearly £500,000 a week. He's not doing anything. He's just sat by the wayside, and he's not contributing. So therefore, I want my player to have 100,000 more than what you had on the table initially, and it's difficult because you would never get that situation at Man City, for example, where their wage structure is so efficient in terms of you've got players now. I think I was looking recently. Aymeric Laporte, who's one of the best centre backs in the league, was on less than 100,000 a week. And he's playing every single week, and he's an absolute colossus at the back for them.
Well, I guess it's something similar we've seen with Van Dijk recently, him rumoured of signing a new contract. His wages, actually, it's still a lot of money, but it's for the who is being tipped for the Ballon d'Or, tipped as one of the best centre-backs in the world, he's on nothing if you compare it to someone like Alexis Sanchez, who's not playing.
I think it's so important that when you are giving these players the wage, such an astronomical wage, they've earned it. They've earned the right to get there. It was so ridiculous with Sanchez, who'd had an iffy season with Arsenal at best in the season that he joined in January, and then he's already going into United having done nothing except play a piano, and then suddenly. And it's bad as well because you've got a lot of players like Rashford, Pogba, and Martial at United, and they're all quite promising players, and they can look at that, and suddenly football's maybe not the main priority. They're looking at that, and their agents are thinking, maybe we and De Gea as well. Maybe we can get another 100,000 out of the club instead of thinking, you know what, I'm going to play, I'm going to work my way, I'm going to earn the contract, I'm going to keep going and give it my best. It suddenly becomes a case of that's the secondary almost, because some people who are at the top aren't necessarily deserving it. Go back to what you said about Daniel James. I think these are the kind of players that United need to be looking at now, because they are not, let make no mistake, they are not the same club that they were, in the Sir Alex Ferguson years when they were challenging at the top. They need to realise that, and the fans need to realise that. They need to get players who are going to come in, take a modest wage. I think they need to really sort of look at that structuring and really try and lower that wage structure and get players focused on what the main task at hand is. And someone like Daniel James will come in from, he's had a really good season in the Championship, looks like a really good player, did well against Man City actually in the FA Cup. So that's a good barometer of where he's at, I guess. And he's going to come in.
Yeah.
He's going to be focused, determined, and he's going to be proud to put on the Man United shirt. And I think United need to be signing players of that ilk, young players who are going to come in and be ready to kick on, work hard, and do the best for the club. Because you know what? Towards the end of last season, we weren't seeing that. We're seeing players who were, half-assed. I guess I think we're allowed to say that.
I can I just say something about Manchester United? I want to agree with Johnny. I think that Sanchez signing really screwed up there, because now, like Johnny said, all these players now want the same wages, and they can say, well, this guy's got this wages, I'm playing better than him, so why shouldn't I get those wages? What Johnny said is right. They need to recognise where they are and start rebuilding with the best young talent who is not the big names, not on the big money, and start again. That is actually more than, the Man United way is to build teams with young players who are hungry players who have huge potential, and give them an opportunity to play and build a team. That's actually what Man United's all about. Like what they've done in the last few years since Ferguson left, they've just tried to buy ready-made superstars most of the time. Like Paul Pogba, is a big example. Sanchez, they've tried to just buy success quickly instead of building success like they used to do. And maybe, I'm not necessarily a fan of Solskjaer as a manager, but he's definitely got the right idea in terms of the type of players they need to look at. And I think.
And what do you think of Wan-Bissaka as a signing, James? Do you feel like he'll be a positive? Is he part of that? Even though it's an astronomical fee, do you still think that's a positive step forward?
I think it's an excellent signing. I think it really is. I really rate him. I think he's a huge talent, and if Chelsea didn't have Reece James, I would be wanting him for Chelsea. Let's put it that way. Yeah, he's a huge talent, and the thing is, he got his opportunity at Palace because they got injuries, and because they wanted to, and because he was from the academy, and they gave him a chance. No one knew who he was a year ago, and now everyone wants him, and they want to pay 60 million for him.
I feel like he's a bit of a throwback as well, isn't he? Because you see Trent Alexander-Arnold bombing on and providing brilliant attacking returns. Not saying he's not good defensively, but Wan-Bissaka, it's about his defensive contributions, isn't it? The way he holds his position. I think he had a brilliant tackle success rate. At one point, it was 94%. I'm sure that went down probably. That was crazy. But at one point in the season, it was 94%, which was better than anyone across Europe. His defensive abilities are incredible, especially, as I say, in this modern age where the fullback tends to be just bombing on and providing crosses, gets caught out a bit at the back. So I'm with James. I think this is it'd be a really good signing. And it's also, I think, we talk about an astronomical fee, but again, Man City have done this a little bit, maybe not astronomical in terms of, they've actually done quite well, 60, 50, 40 million. I don't think they've gone past 60.
Yeah.
But as I say, getting those players in, paying a bit more in terms of a fee, but getting them on that modest wage, I think that's a better way of doing it. I really do. And it would be a shame Because, you look at it and you think, oh, there's a few players at United that maybe aren't too hungry at the moment, and they've got lots of quality. I'm looking at maybe Pogba, thinking, is he still got the hunger or desire to really drive this United team forward? And fans might not like the fact that the idea of them going or saying, oh, the club's going backwards. But sometimes you've got to sort of look at it and think, you know what, we've messed up these past few seasons, and we have to sort of rip it up a little bit and start from scratch, which is what I was alluding to before, what James sort of mentioned as well, in that you kind of have to know where you're actually at, know what you're trying to do, think long term, get players like James and get promising young players and keep the hungry players who want to be at United, and then we'll go from there. Add quality, as and when they can, but don't, as James said, just try and get A, B, and C because and throw all the money at it and just throw the plan out the window. Don't change that plan for anyone. Stay focused. Be sensible. And give Solskjaer time to try and get United back to where they should be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you put that fee, that magical number, 50, 60 million fee into perspective, United spent £53 million on Fred last summer, and that hasn't really gone anywhere. This is, I feel like he'll be given another chance next season, and hopefully he can spur on and become more of the solid box to box midfielder he was at Shakhtar Donetsk. But I guess it makes that fee for Wan-Bissaka seem a lot more realistic because he's young and English, and it is we as we saw with United, Ashley Young, great player, and he's been a great servant for United, transitioning from a winger to a fullback, but he's not someone you can rely on to captain your side week in, week out, Champions League and Premier League. So I feel like someone like Wan-Bissaka, that they know they need to improve that right back position, and that's why it's worth that fee.
It's funny though. Ashley Young gets a lot of criticism, and to be fair, when you do watch him, it can be quite frustrating at times. But you got to remember, he was a right winger who came to right back, or left back actually, wasn't it, to begin with, to fill in for a job. And actually, as a squad player, as a player who comes in for the cup games, or if the first choice right back's injured, you're looking at someone with a lot of experience, with a. I think he certainly, you couldn't fault his effort. He definitely tried, So you've got an experienced person who's willing to put in the legs. And I'm sure he wouldn't be too bothered as a backup option. I think the main issue, as you've said, was really he's an aging player now, and I think when you were seeing him playing every single game almost for 90 minutes, you're looking and you're thinking, oh well. He's looking a bit leggy now. He's looking a bit leggy. Can we play Diego Dalot or someone like this? But Solskjaer seemed to really trust in Ian Young, and I think he became a scapegoat, didn't he, towards the end? Well, for large parts of Solskjaer's reign, really, when it wasn't going too well for United. So I think, like we say, if they get another right back in, it's not Young as a second choice, would it be such a bad problem for them?
No, definitely not. And I feel like he can fill that sort of like substitute role as a right back or left back, or as you say, come in and be that experienced captain head for those important cup games that you can sometimes get complacent about when you're playing lower league teams, etc. So it'd be really interesting to see. And again, I think just as a football fan, I do want to see the teams we've spoken about, Chelsea, United, etc., succeed again in the Premier League, because myself, like I said to James before we started recording, is I got so used to seeing United and Chelsea as the top teams in the Premier League, and obviously people are probably quite happy to see that change with Tottenham and Liverpool getting to the Champions League final, City winning the league again, City and Liverpool really going in a whole different world of their own in terms of what they bring to English football. But it would be nice to really have that a sort of top four again, I guess, where you're not sure who's going to win the league. And I feel like we had that at the start of the season with Chelsea, City and Liverpool, but obviously those two front runners just got away from it. But it's going to be a really interesting season, and I think over this summer it'll be really nice to continue to talk about all the transfer business that we're hoping to see. And I guess hopefully we see a few more big money deals, and see as time passes and these teams become a little bit more complete, and we can sort of then start to look forward to the new season beginning, which is already only under 2 months away, which it's going to fly by, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I think I'm excited about exploring what's going on in the transfer market, and I think it's only just beginning. I mean, Matt like Real Madrid may have done 5 transfers already, but I think there's some more ones to come. I think I think Manchester United, obviously Manchester City, Liverpool. All the big ones will be active, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, amazing. And I feel like thank you guys for joining me today. I feel like we've had a really good discussion about the transfer news that's come out, and hopefully you guys at home, wherever you're listening, whether you're listening on your phone or at work or something, just to catch up on the latest news as you're used to seeing on Twitter and Facebook from Transfer News Central. Hopefully you can get a bit more used to our YouTube channel, etc., and this weekly or bi-weekly podcast that we're hoping to bring to you as much as we can. And I guess it's just remember to check us out on our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and come back next week to listen to me, Johnny, and James again.
Peace out, people.
So I guess thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.